put a couple hours into this day because I have to get, you know, the actual paid work done. So the goal right now is to get the turbo manifold on, get the turbo bolted back on, and start working on the new oil drain line and work on the new catch can system, which is going to involve me probably making the catch can. I think I know where I'm going to mount it, but we will see if that's going to work out. So I've got a fresh Fel-Pro gasket here. I've got some high temp RTV to put around both sides because it does see quite a bit of pressure. So we want to make sure that we, you know, can control what can leak. I do need to put a back pressure sensor on here somewhere. I actually need to do that really before I do anything else, now that I think about it, which it's just a 1/8 NPT tap, so I'm gonna do that really quick. I have here the back pressure system, back pressure sensor system we usually use. This is from Low Dollar Motorsports. This is where we get most of our pressure sensors from, and it's a pretty nice kit. I'll open it up and break down what's in it, but it comes with a weld-on bung, which is what I need out of here, so that I can find a spot on here to put it, which I'm going to temporarily mount this so I can see exactly where I'm going to be able to put this. Essentially, the way this kit works is we have, I believe this is just like a resonator. It gets rid of the pulse vibrations to even out the sensor. It also dissipates heat, which is also why there's this long hose which gets put in here. It tightens down on it with the compression fitting on both sides, and you mount it kind of far away from the heat so the sensor doesn't get damaged. It comes with this mounting tab that you don't have to use. That's why it's kind of supplied separate. You can weld it onto here so you can mount it somewhere. Typically what I do is I just clamp it to something so that this is removable. After we do our initial testing, we don't really need this data because we kind of know what the turbo is going to do. So sometimes I'll take it out and plug it because it's just one less thing in the car. So now we will find a spot for this weld bung and go from there. We have the manifold just loosely bolted on, and I'm thinking to minimize how much heat wrap I'm going to have to get new of, because it's just, it's not cheap, but it's also, this is still good. I'm going to unwrap it, and I'm going to drill a hole right there, and then I'll weld the bung right kind of on the collector there, which should give us a good pressure reading. As long as it's after all the runners. The problem with putting it like on a runner is you're gonna get pulses of pressure, because as the pressure pushes backwards from the rest of the manifold and you have a pulse come out of the engine, they are gonna meet and they are gonna want to pulse. So we'll do it at the collector to try to minimize that. All right, so we have our bung welded on there. Still a little toasty. So now we're going to mount this onto the car like permanently, so that we have something to hold this still, so we can tighten on the AN fitting and tighten on the compression fitting. Tightening the compression fitting on this side is a bit of a job, but a bit of a job we can do. So let's get this all on here. Okay, so that's in there and tight. It's in here and tight. This all needs to get tightened up, but this isn't going to be its final resting location, so I'm just kind of leaving it there so we can get the rest of the stuff going. So now that the manifold is fully in, I got to see about getting a hose on the new breather and getting a hose on the drain line. I don't have any electronics in this area to hook up, but I do need to put the shift selectors on so that I have room to get to them. And then now that this is on, I can put the thermostat housing on. It's just easy to get this in and out of here without the thermostat housing there. So shift selectors will be next. I actually might leave the thermostat housing out so I can get to the drain easier. We'll see. We will see. I'm not going to put the manifold on yet, just because I do have some wiring stuff I got to do. We have an extra input expander for the fuel tech. So I need to run some stuff out to here for extra sensors. So we have the back pressure sensor going in. We have a coolant pressure sensor that we're putting in. We have a crankcase pressure, which I need to get a new connector for. Crankcase pressure sensor, which I had hijacked another sensor to run that. That's how we know that we needed to add all the extra breather to the engine. So we have a bunch of extra inputs. We also have VR to Hall conditioners, so we can do a front wheel speed sensor and a rear wheel speed sensor. So that's 2 more inputs. So we have a lot of things we're adding. We're going to add a reading for the other cam. We're not running the VVT, but it would be nice to be able to monitor the 2 cam positions relative to each other, so we can make sure that the gears aren't moving around and we're not like stretching chains or anything like that. It's just data to make things safer. And we do have enough inputs so that if we put the nitrous back on it, depending on how things go, if we want to spool it up quicker so we don't have to rev it out so much, we can put a nitrous pressure sensor on there. So it's about getting data. Data is the name of the game. At some point we'll put EGTs on it. That's just not gonna happen right now. So that's where we're at. And it's good seeing that giant monstrosity in there. Oh, it spins so good. Still spinning. Still spinning. All right, so we don't have this fully tightened on because I'm gonna have to take it back off. So our current oil drain is just a steel tube that I put a hose over, and it worked fine. So we have an AN fitting down there now because we did have a little bit of seepage from the hose down there. So I'm gonna either weld a bung to the end of that and just do the dash 10 hose, or I'm going to see if I can get the hose up and over that. Now, you might be thinking, well, it's an AN line, why would you do that? Well, if that is inside of it and it's all flowing that way, it's not gonna leak with a clamp over it, and it's easier to remove. And I have made everything about this as easy to take apart as humanly possible, because at the track, if God forbid we gotta take something out to replace like a clutch or an axle, or God forbid an engine, which we are putting together a plan for a backup engine. But if we have to do any of that, we kind of have to be able to take this apart quick, especially since we do plan on doing some long-term and some long duration events in this. So everything's gonna come out quick. So if we're gonna take the turbo off and like replace the turbo on the fly, instead of messing around with an AN fitting and all that stuff, we can just have it slide on. It's obviously just gonna be easier. So I'm gonna get my dash 10 fittings on the back and kind of see where we're at with that, and see what we can come up with. The shift linkages are all hooked up. So, and then I'm also gonna go get the torque mount and the puke tank so I can figure that out. This is our, well, will be our puke tank, an oil catch can if you want to call it that. So I have to find somewhere to mount it. Now, you can put it in the car, but then that's a lot of lines you got to run and all that jazz. And, you know, hot oil vapor. We have the battery mounted down there. You know, I was thinking right here, but obviously there's not going to be enough room once you put the gator light in. But I was thinking, and play along with me for a second, put it about right here. Now, yes, there is a headlight that goes there, but we don't technically have to run a functioning headlight. So I was thinking maybe there I could, you know, strap it somewhere up front. I could put it over radiator. There's really a lot of places I can put it. I just have to find somewhere for it. Now, the reason we're going to use this is making aluminum boxes is extremely time consuming if you don't have a press brake, because you have to weld it, cut it, and fit it, and it's a bit of a pain in the ass. So I just bought this. It's supposed to be like a case for something, and I'm just going to weld it shut and put the bungs on it that it needs, and, you know, really easy aluminum box. Just a little bit of welding. Realistically, I could just seal this together. You don't have to weld it, but I probably will because I can. So I gotta figure that out. I mean, I don't want to put it back here, there is room for it. But if you put it back there, if it leaks, you know, hot oil onto hot headers, not usually a good thing. So I'll play with that some more after I figure out these lines. So I'm gonna have to get a weld bung. I was thinking dash 10 would fit over that. It doesn't, so if I'm gonna have to weld onto it, let's do a weld bung. So down here, not sure if you can see it, right here. That is a 45-degree bend. So we'll use that, and then for our breather, we have a 90, which will run up, and then I can run that pretty much wherever I want. I can run it under the torque mount if I want to. So I gotta order a mild steel dash 10 bung for that. I don't want to put any AN hoses into anything until we get the weld bungs for that. So I guess next I need to figure out what the puke tank is going to be. So I'm going to get the battery so I can plop it there so I can have it for visual. Who needs horns in a race car, right? Take the horn part off and we can mount that sucker right there. That way it's easy to get to. Oh yeah, that's happening. Cool. Well, that answers that question. It really matters, but this horn assembly is heavier than the aluminum box. I mean, once I add bungs to it, probably not, but interesting. So those are off. So I will make a bracket for that to go onto that, and then we can have our hoses. And then the main breather out of the box, I will have come over and come out in the fender area, so that not only can we see it from inside the car when we're racing or doing two-step or something like that, so we can make sure there's not excessive amounts, but also in case there is some sort of huge pressure event and a ton of fluid gets pushed out, it'll be after the front wheels, which, you know, steering is important, and it will spray onto the car instead of under the car, because, you know, doing 140 plus miles an hour, you don't want oil underneath your your tires. That's a bad day. All right, so we know where that's gonna go. I gotta order a bung for that. So before I do this, I'm gonna start, I think I'm gonna actually put the intake manifold on and do some wiring hookup, just so I can get that all done, because once I put the can in, I'm not gonna want to take it out 15 million times to do wiring stuff. So I'm gonna get the harness hooked up. I have the harness for the extra inputs. I will figure out what needs to go where in here, and we'll be right back. So I got a little excited and I put the intake manifold on, okay? Got a little excited. So now I'm gonna put the fuel rail on, because I got a little excited, because it's starting to look like a car again. So, oh, and the radiator hose on the bottom. So, yeah. All right, so I got the injectors in with their little spacer things. I can't find the fuel rail. I have no idea where the fuel rail went, which is a bit of a problem. So I'm either gonna need to get another one or find the other one, but I gotta get back to working on those, specifically get that smart car out of here, which you guys will see why that's back in a video after this one, maybe before this one. So I'm gonna clean up and kind of call that a day on here. We got a lot done. Pretty much everything is plugged in, with the exception of the battery. If I put the battery in there, everything should work. I mean, I gotta hook up grounds and shit and clean up this wiring that we've been poking at all the off season. But that's where we're gonna leave this one. We'll come back to this another time.